So, hi, welcome to the Simple Nourished Living podcast. I'm Martha McKinnon, and this is my brother and my partner, Peter Morrison. How
Hi,
are you?
everyone.
Hi, how are
Hi.
you?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
Good. I'm really liking this podcast. You know why? Because I get to see you more often. It's really pretty fun.
Well, if we lived closer, we could do it in person.
I know.
Maybe we will one of these
Maybe we
days.
will. Maybe we will. We did live close and we didn't even think about doing
Didn't,
something like this. So you just make do with with your situation, right? So
right.
today we're going to talk about Weight Watchers and the fact that the terminology, we call it often a daily budget, but actually when you read the materials, it's called a daily target. And I think we have to really think about the difference between a budget and a target because I think it can be helpful. But before we get into that, what's new and good in your world?
It's new and good in my world. Still have family in town, so we're busy.
Busy.
We're trying to pick an area like a day trip,
Uh-huh.
something that we haven't done, and exploring the area, which is good for us and
Yeah.
a way to show people the area around where we live. Um, so that's been good, but busy. So that changes sort of your schedule. So there's a lot of adapting and whatnot. And been having fun with some leftovers
Have you?
recently. I made a big ground turkey and veggie stir fry earlier in the week, and then rather than just have the same thing for leftovers, and I know we've talked about this in the past,
Yeah.
not on the podcast, just personally, about turning favorite leftovers into soups,
Yeah.
and it had a really good soup. It was so simple. It was because the stir fry was just ground turkey and veggies and very lightly seasoned, so it
Uh-huh.
wasn't in any one direction. And just added, a can of diced tomatoes and some spinach and what else did I put in there? I can't even remember. It was kind of like a clean out the fridge,
Right.
and it really changes the meal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a simple preparation,
Right.
but it's something you've already eaten, but it doesn't feel like you're eating the same thing over again. So I really like soup, especially this time of year in the winter, and
Mm-hmm.
it's fun. It's just fun turning foods into soup, and we've joked about that. It's like, well, because there was a book at one point. Can you waffle
Can
it,
you
or
waffle it? We talked about the book Can You Soup It, right?
can you soup it?
We
Yeah,
have
can you
so
turn
many
this into a
ideas,
soup?
right? Because
Hmm.
that was a really, clever book for a while. Everybody was putting,
Will it waffle? That's what it's called.
was it
Will it
called Will It
waffle?
Waffle? Yeah, I mean, everybody was putting all kinds of weird stuff in their waffle iron for a while. So, yeah, so Can You Soup It is pretty fun. And we've done some interesting things, right? We've souped tamales, we've souped
Hmm.
leftover lasagna, we've souped
Enchiladas turn into good soup,
enchiladas turn into
leftover.
soup. So yeah, that's really fun. And so it really does totally repurpose it. It doesn't feel like it's just old. It feels new and fresh.
Hmm.
And I think that that's something that I think can be really helpful for people, especially who don't like to cook. This whole concept of like cooking once and then eating two or three times, but not just the same thing.
Right.
Figuring out ways to repurpose it and mix it up can keep things interesting, but also easy. So
Hmm.
and I'm all about easy. The older I get,
Absolutely.
right? So
And for smaller families,
right.
you're out all day, like we're out on the road or exploring a new area, and you come home and you're hungry, and
Right.
it's simple
Yeah.
to pull out something that's already
Right.
um,
Yeah. I think it's just
cooked
so
and
much more practical because I know a lot of our folks ask for recipes for one and two, and that has a lot of merit. But if you make something for four or six, you've got that to start with. It just makes the whole process easier. So you're not
hmm.
starting from scratch every day. So yeah. So we'll explore that more. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a great topic. Well, good, good. Well, what's
What
going
about
on?
you? What's new and good in your world?
Well, I just crossed over 900 consecutive days in DuoLingo.
Oh my
Right. So
goodness.
I'm trying to
That's
I'm trying
incredible.
to learn Spanish, and it's it's slow and steady process, but I'm proud of myself for just sticking with it a little bit every day. So slow and steady. It's my motto.
What's been the main driver in the stick-to-itiveness of your
I
Duolingo,
just
do you
you get
think?
alerts on your app, which
Yeah.
in your phone, which
Yeah.
reminds you like you've got this streak, and it's just something about keeping the streak going, keeping the streak alive. I
Hmm.
guess I have a little bit of that. I don't want to let it go now. It's been 900 days, so just keep just keep it going. Don't break the chain. That was like a Jerry
Right.
Seinfeld belief that it was really important when you're trying to accomplish something that you just got to stick with it. And if you do break the chain, that's okay. You just pick up where you left off. But I just want to keep it going, and I do. I spend the winter in Mexico, so being able to converse and get to that point where you actually could understand and speak a little bit, so I have that motivation too. Makes it a little more real.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Well,
Congratulations.
thank you. All right. So, are we ready to talk about budget versus target?
Absolutely.
So, so I think a lot of us think in terms of a daily points budget, which seems more, in my mind, limiting. Like that sense that if you go over it, you've somehow messed up.
Hmm.
Versus a target, right? In my mind, is just I think about the bullseye and
Hmm.
playing, shooting your arrow towards the target, suggesting that while you're trying to get it, at the bullseye, you don't have to succeed. And just a really, I think, an important point to understand because it can give you a little bit more. You can relax a little. I think it's important for us to relax around the whole concept of the budget because it can mess with our minds if suddenly we get to it's lunchtime and we've exceeded the budget,
Mm.
and we think of it as a budget and we somehow see that we failed. The new Weight Watchers program with so many 0 points food helps with that a lot too, right? Because if you've reached your target, if you've got, like, for example, with me on maintenance, I get 29 points a day. A lot of people get 23. It depends on your weight, your height, your age, and other, factors in knowing what your daily target will be. So we have all those 0 points foods now to call on, right? So if you reached your budget, now you can eat. There are many foods that you can eat to still stay within that target. So that's really helpful with your mind.
So I have a question for you. Not being a Weight Watcher myself, when
Right.
you said a lot of people feel that they've messed up if they've gone over their budget, does that in your mind or in people's minds, does that equate to overeating? Like
Right.
when you say messed up, like I feel like I overate
Right.
because
I feel like, oh,
okay.
I've messed up for this day because, like, the one of the basic tenets, right, of weight loss is that you're trying to create a deficit, right? You're trying to eat
Hmm.
less so that you can, lose weight. And so the mindset is I've screwed up. I've exceeded my limit. I've blown it, and and sometimes then you can say, well, forget it. I've ruined it. I'll start again tomorrow, and you just allow yourself now to uh, en- engage in, it's like, oh, I've messed up. I may as well eat a bag of chips.
It's a free for
It's a
all
free, it
at that
becomes a
point.
free for all. It can in your mind, right? Versus,
Mm-hmm.
well, wait a minute. It's just a target. It's just something I'm aiming for, and I don't have to be perfect, and I don't have to meet it, and I can still lose weight. And with the Weight Watchers program, the way it is set up with the way points are allocated, it really is designed to get you to eat healthy, nourishing foods. Consequently, foods that are high in saturated fat and high in sugar have very high points relative to their calorie count. You know, so the target really does encourage you to eat a very wholesome diet because that's going to help you feel, more full and satisfied and give you all your vitamins and minerals and cause you to feel good. But you just have to not get psyched out, I guess. And I'm a
Hmm.
really great example because I said my budget on maintenance is about 29 points a day. I regularly, when I'm tracking, I'll regularly be at 45, 42 to 50 a day. So if you imagine
A
that
day?
target, you imagine the bullseye at 29, but you see those arrows, like I'm outside. I'm still on the I'm still on the the target, but I'm not hitting the bullseye. I'm here and there and everywhere. But I maintain my weight. And I was curious about that. So at one point I took a few days and I just I tracked both in the Weight Watchers app, and also I Lose It, which is it's a free app that is calorie. It'll track your calories and your macros for you. And so I just did a side by side comparison. According to Lose It, my maintenance target is about 1,700 calories a day, and you know that range of 42 to 50 that I eat typically puts me right in around that 1,700 calories. So it just made me realize that for me, because I'm not necessarily loading up on 0 points foods. If I want something, if I want my glass of wine in the evening, even though it's 4 to 6 points, I have it. I've been doing this long enough. I know my body. And so I just want people to understand that you got to just step back and realize and think differently. I think a lot of this is really mindset and understanding all of the nuances of the program to have the most success and to not psych yourself out. So I just want people to help think target, I missed I didn't hit the bullseye, but I could still, I can still maintain, or I can still lose this week for sure.
So help me understand again.
Yep.
Your points, you said when you do track that you're in maintenance and you're pretty comfortable with
Right.
what you eat. So you're not necessarily a regular tracker, but when you do track, you're not surprised if you're over what
Right.
your plan was. So like if people are struggling to not go over their points, how do you reconcile that in your brain that you are still able to maintain if you're so far over your points?
You might want to just, for your own comfort, you might want to just do what I did with tracking in both systems for a couple of days, just to compare, just to understand the realities of the system, because the Weight Watchers plan really is targeting for you to eat a very, very, what I would say, very, very, very wholesome diet, and so
Whole
you
foods?
might,
Do you
right,
mean
for the
whole
foods,
foods?
right, in order to stay within that daily target. Basically what that means. But again, you could be overeating, you could be staying within your target, right, and be over your calorie limit if you're really going excessive with the 0 points foods,
0 point
right?
foods.
So, if you suddenly get this mindset, again, you've got to remember that 0 point food doesn't mean free. It's healthier, more wholesome foods, but they still, can be very calorie dense. Like, for example, if you're eating, we talked about this, I think, and I think bananas is a good one for me, just because, I think of bananas having had a torturous life on, Weight Watchers, because, way back when it was in the exchange program, I think maybe really, really early, it wasn't even a part of it because it was seen as having too much sugar. And then like a half a banana was a serving of fruit. When it was first introduced with the initial points plan, a banana had 2 points. Then eventually when fruits and vegetables were made 0, it became 0. And but again, a banana has, if you look it up, it probably has 80 to 120 calories depending on the size of the banana, right? So it's good for you. It's got a lot of nutrition. But if you were suddenly eating a bunch of bananas every day, that would be a huge amount of food, a huge amount of calories. So
Yeah, 0 points.
get 0 points.
Theoretically.
Theoretically.
Right. Okay.
Eggs, right? Eggs are great for you. But what's a serving of eggs? 1, 2, or 3 in my mind, right? 3 would be a really big omelet in my mind and more than I could eat. But if you suddenly are thinking about eggs as being free and you're making, 6 scrambled eggs for breakfast, you're suddenly now eating sort of like a power lifter, right? Like somebody I mean, how many calories a day was it? I'm thinking about Michael Phelps, back in his training days. I mean,
Oh,
right? I saw some chart about like how many calories he was burning and how much food he could eat. I mean, it was so he can do that because he was training, right, for hours a day. But if you're just leading a typical life, getting your 30 minutes, 40 minutes an hour of exercise, and trying to lose weight, you just got to you just have to have your mindset in the right place. And so you can't be using or gaming, sort of trying to game the system. Nor can you, I think, get discouraged and maybe do what I did if you're curious, to just, there's tons of free apps, out there available. You could just play with one of those for a couple of days just to understand where you are.
Do you have any other tips for helping with the mindset? You mentioned mindset a couple times. So
Yeah,
if
well,
someone's struggling, and
yeah.
it's going to be different for
Right.
everyone.
It's interesting because I tuned in. Yesterday. It's funny. We should talk about this. I think mindset really drives everything. I've said this in the past, and I think it's something we'll continue to explore. That when you're feeling good, when you're happy, like when you're sort of your head's in the game, when you're feeling capable and confident, then the whole process is easier. You know, when you're not, like when you're really struggling, when you're demoralized, when you've got a lot of stress in your life, when you're feeling down, the whole process feels more challenging. And so in some ways, I believe it's really important to really focus on that's why I talk about, we always start this with what's new and good. I mean, I think it's really important to focus on and give a lot of consideration to your state of mind and your state of being, and focus on that, because the truth is the whole process. I mean, I think there's a post that I wrote years ago that I'll continue to believe in strongly. It's get happy. Don't lose weight thinking it's going to make you happy. Figure out how to get happy, and then losing weight is going to be a lot easier. So, and it's funny, we were tuning into Tony Robbins, the motivational giant, is doing a free seminar this weekend, and Rod had signed up for it. And so we just tuned into a little bit about that yesterday, and he talked about the same thing. He was talking about, change, and the fact that a lot of people think strategy first. They go right to like, how am I going to do this? I'm going to do Atkins. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And he said, there's two things that are important above that. One is the story you're telling yourself. Like if you're telling yourself, this is too hard, I can't do this, I've done everything and it doesn't work. That's a story you don't want to be telling yourself, when you're trying to change.
Really hard to overcome
that. And then up from that,
Yeah.
he said your state of mind, that whole concept of your emotions. And that those things are critical, and more important than your the how. The strategy will get easier once you're on board and you're wanting to do it, and you can do it, and you're feeling good. So that can be really, really helpful, is to just consider, like, sometimes you just got to step back and not be so focused. I think we can get over focused on the food, and just pull ourselves back. Because
When you mentioned get happy, it made me think of something we've talked about before, which I believe comes from the Mindless Eating book, which I hope we read together and are
I
able
think
to
we should
talk
work our
about
way
at one
through
point.
that. Yeah, there's so much
But
in
the
there.
the get happy made me think of taking a meal, whether it's lunch,
Yeah,
dinner, breakfast, whatever, and actually putting it on a plate and sitting down at a table and enjoying it, versus, which I've done this many times, because, oh, I've got an appointment, or you're running out the door, and
right.
you grab something quick, you throw it in the microwave, and you stand at the counter or over the kitchen sink, and you just sort of inhale it because you're
Right.
in a hurry. And that never, I'm thinking of those two meals, those two experiences, and it never, I mean, you're getting nourishment and you're starving, and it's good in that respect, but it never feels good as the food settles, as it
Right. It's like you're
versus the meal when you sit down and actually breathe and chew
Right.
your food and have a nice conversation is totally different.
It is totally different. And that's something I think that we want to just sort of really focus on, the fact that we can get so hung up on the food, even the eating of
Hmm.
the self, but the way you eat and who you're eating
Hmm.
with, right,
Hmm.
is paramount too. And because and a lot of the science is saying, well, we say we put the food in and it nourished us, but there's a good chance because we didn't really experience it with all of our senses, because our mind, we were disconnected mind and body, it's a good chance
Hmm.
that somehow we know from a previous podcast, right, where we talk about the milkshake experiment, which I'm still, want to do more in because I've been down that rabbit hole with that researcher and the things she's done. I mean, so our beliefs, the whole experience, it's part of the deal, right? And
Hmm.
so that's it's a really important consideration. You're right. It's not your body doesn't receive it the same, because we're not just physical machines. I love this concept
Hmm.
of biopsychosocial. We're biopsychosocial, spiritual, beings. We're complicated. And so, yeah, so that's another big consideration, is not just what you're eating, but how are you eating it? What's the environment like? Are you eating in you eating in your car while you're driving to a stressful appointment? Are you sitting down, you know, at a table with a nice place setting or in a park, taking in
Hmm.
nature? It makes a huge difference. Absolutely. All right. So if you have questions, I'd love for people to share in the comments their experiences with the target, mindset issues, what they've discovered with, with this whole concept of thinking in terms of target and realizing that you don't have to be perfect, giving yourself grace around it, and just really, I mean, the program is designed to help provide some framework for you to figure out how to have a healthy relationship with food, and to how to tap into, you want to get back to that point where you're tapping into your natural hunger and satiety. And that's just going to take time and practice, especially if it's something that we've not been paying attention to, or that we're used to eating to the extremes. So share your experiences. And if you have ideas for other topics, other questions you have, please share those in the comments too. And we look forward to being back with you again soon.
Have a great day,
Have a great day.
everyone.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.